So in this video, I'll be going over my favorite NFL draft picks, whether it's based off need, value, talent, all that type of stuff. So I think overall the NFL draft went pretty well. I know we expected some bad things to happen due to the fact it was over video, but it was a pretty smooth process. There were some awkward pauses here and there, but for the most part, they pretty much nailed it. So I think it was a pretty good process. My mock draft was not accurate at all, but honestly, it was the first one I did for like the full NFL. So I guess, hopefully I'll do better next year, but I think I got the first 3 picks right, and then after that it was just a crap show, honestly. So it frustrated me because I had Tua going to the Dolphins in my first one, and then I just bought into the whole rumors that the Dolphins wanted Herbert, and I was a fool. I went for it, so they got me, but hopefully next year I do better. But let's get into this video. Hopefully you enjoy. Leave in the comments your favorite picks for a team based off need, value, scheme fit, all that type of stuff, and let's get into it. So I guess we'll go in order here to make this fair. I don't want to like play favorites or anything in this, so we'll start with we'll go by highest pick basically. So the first one I loved was Jedrick Wills. Of course I liked picks before that. I love Chase Young. I love Joe Burrow. I loved my Giants getting Andrew Thomas. But in terms of value, absolutely love the Jedrick Wills pick going 10th overall to the Cleveland Browns. He probably will play left tackle because they did sign Jack Conklin in the offseason to play right tackle. It was somewhat of a big contract, but not outrageous, so I guess props to them for getting their tackles of the future. So this is a guy I definitely wanted 4th overall. So to get him 10th overall, I think is very good. I am not like this pro scout or anything like that, but I watched a lot of offensive linemen this offseason because, of course, the Giants needed one, and I'm a big fan of them. So I watched a lot of Wills, watched a lot of Thomas, Becton, Wirfs, all those guys, and I came away like most enamored by Jedrick Wills. I do think he's very pro-ready. He's probably the best pass protector in this class, in my opinion. He can play left and right tackle. He's pretty nimble, pretty agile, and has really good hand placement, all that good stuff. Locks his arms very well. So this is a team, the Browns, that needed offensive line help, specifically at left tackle. I think their previous left tackle was in trouble with the law or something like that, so they definitely needed a left tackle. This fits need, it fits value, all that type of stuff. A very talented player as well. So I do think he has the highest floor out of the offensive linemen picked in this draft. I do think that. I think, Mekhi Becton, very high ceiling, probably the highest, but very low floor. I think Tristan Wirfs has some blunders in his game here and there. And then Andrew Thomas, I guess things can go wrong because his hand placement and maybe footwork isn't the best at times. But Jedrick Wills seems like the complete package to me. I think the Browns absolutely nailed this one at 10th overall. You know what? They have all the weapons. They have Odell. They have Landry. They have Njoku. Now they have Austin Hooper, Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, all these guys. All they need is protection for that stuff to work, and I do think Jedrick Wills was a phenomenal pick for them, 10th overall. My second one was the 14th overall pick, Javon Kinlaw. So, of course, the Niners had the 13th overall pick previously when they traded up with the Colts, with the DeForest Buckner trade. So the reason I love this move is because it saved a lot of money, and they traded back to accumulate another mid-round pick. So basically they received the 14th pick, obviously, and the pick number 117, traded pick 13, and then also traded pick 245. So great value in that move just for the Bucs to move up one spot for Tristan Wirfs. I do think Tristan Wirfs will be a nice fit for the Bucs, but as for the 49ers, I think this was a great move. So what they did financially here was very smart. The Niners have so many guys on the final years of their contract. Richard Sherman, Jaquiski Tartt, Trent Williams, Solomon Thomas. I don't think they picked up his option I just saw, but still they could re-sign him in the future. Kyle Juszczyk, I think, is another one. They have a lot of guys on the final year of their contract, and they are essentially saving $20.5 million by letting DeForest Buckner go to the Colts, getting this pick back, and taking Javon Kinlaw. So I don't want to say Javon Kinlaw is going to be better or even as good as DeForest Buckner, but the drop-off can't be that significant in my mind. When you're playing on a defensive line with Dee Ford and Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead, all these guys, it's just going to make your job so much easier. And I was a big Javon Kinlaw guy. I liked him more than Derek Brown, so obviously I'm very high on him. And in fitting into this Niners defense, I think it'll be a tremendous fit. This guy has a bunch of strength, pass rushing ability, just overall upside that not many defensive tackles have, in recent draft classes. I know, Ed Oliver was a good one, Quentin Williams, but Javon Kinlaw is just such a raw prospect that the ceiling for him is just, outrageous. But in terms of saving that money to save guys, to sign guys for the future, I think the Niners did such a good job here being proactive. I love when teams do stuff like this. It's just such a smart move financially. And, as I said, playing with this defensive line, it'll make his job easier. So I see Javon Kinlaw, as long as he's healthy and as long as there's a season next year, to have an immediate impact, maybe a 7, 8, 9 sack season, a bunch of tackles for loss, all that type of stuff. He'll have a bunch of one-on-one matchups at the defensive line. It'll make his job so much easier. So I love this fit. I love, the financial reasons of it. They are looking ahead. I think the Niners did a great job here of just, being a smart football team, to be quite honest. And I love Javon Kinlaw, the player. So trading back to get him is one of my favorite moves of the draft. My next one is Patrick Queen, who was taken pick 28 for the Baltimore Ravens, plays linebacker. I forgot to put that one, probably inside linebacker in the NFL. So why I like this pick, it's value, it's need, it's talent, it's upside, it's everything. So the Ravens desperately needed linebacker help. They have good outside linebackers. I know they have Judon, they have somebody else I cannot remember right now, but they have 2 good outside linebackers, at least for next season. So they have that, but not many options at inside. So why not take a guy like Patrick Queen? He fell, honestly. I thought he'd be an early 20s pick. I thought he would go like maybe 20 to Jacksonville. I thought the Saints at 24, I think it was, had a chance to take him. I think the Chargers traded up for Kenneth Murray, which I found surprising. I thought that would be Patrick Queen to go there. So I was surprised Murray went before him. I know Murray's more NFL ready at this point, and Patrick Queen's more of a quote-unquote project, but still, I think Patrick Queen has such a high ceiling that I'd rather have a player like him over Kenneth Murray. So Queen is probably one of the youngest players in this draft. I did not go back and research that, but I think he might be a young 21 years old. Like, he's one of the youngest players in this class. And he only started like a few games in 2018 it was, because Devin White got hurt at some point, so he filled in. And then in 2019, last season, he started like in week 3 or 4. So he's not even had a full season under his belt of starting for LSU. But when he was out there, he showed so many good things. He is so explosive. He's a good tackler, can run sideline to sideline, ran a 4.5 flat at the combine. That's awesome. So if you can do that with his size, I don't know the weight and height off top of my head, but he looks like a big guy on tape. So I was very excited. He could be the next Deion Jones, Quan Alexander type linebacker in this league, and the Baltimore Ravens definitely need that. I mean, look, he has his issues apparently with stopping the run. I mean, I think Coach O said that at one point about him, but if he can fix that, of course, the Ravens got torched on the ground in the playoffs last year by Derrick Henry and the Titans, but if he can be good in the run game, I know he can cover the pass and has a bunch of pass coverage upside, so he has that. But if they can find this answer at inside linebacker, the Ravens can be an unstoppable force, and that makes me very excited for them. So they have this great secondary, they have these good outside linebackers, they have a good defensive line. They added Calais Campbell to this defensive line. Hopefully, I know he's a bit older now, but I still think he's a very good player in my mind. So this move can benefit the team greatly. I do think if they find their future inside linebacker option, not saying the man's going to be Ray Lewis, but it might take him maybe a year or 2 to reach his max potential, because there is a learning curve probably, because he honestly has not played that much in college. He's not like a 3-year full-time starter. He was just basically a fill-in starter at some points, but then, got more playing time as his last year went on in 2019. So I do think it might take a little while to transition, but once he reaches his full potential, we might look back on this and say, how did Patrick Queen fall to pick 28? In the final pick of the first round, the Chiefs took running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire from LSU. So look, the Chiefs have a great system for running backs. I think we should know this by now. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire is probably my, I don't want to say favorite, he's probably top 2 in this class for me. I was a Jonathan Taylor fan as well, but I might put Clyde Edwards-Helaire at number 1. So look, Damian Williams was a lifelong backup for Miami. All right, he comes into the Chiefs and actually has 2 pretty successful seasons. He almost won the Super Bowl MVP. I mean, part of me feels he probably should have, but he's a running back, so he probably gets disrespected. But in this Andy Reid system, it seems like running backs have always been successful. I think back to LaShawn McCoy, all the way back to Brian Westbrook when I first got into football. Like, it seems like these running backs, Jamal Charles, I think, was playing for him at one point. I know these are great talents and stuff, but still, Andy Reid has always found a way to have really good running backs. So you like to see that, and I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's one of the best pass-catching options, out of the backfield in this entire class. He had like 55 receptions, I think it was, last year in college, which is insane. I mean, for the NFL, it's not too many, but for college football, 55 receptions for a running back, very, very good. So I think that'll transition very well. He's like, I just love his game. I mean, he's only 5'7". He does have that low center of gravity, but his balance is so incredible. He breaks tackles. He's very shifty. Like, he's not going to blow you away with the breakaway speed. He's not going to do what Jamal Charles did and stuff like that. He's not going to be Chris Johnson for the Titans with the speed he possesses. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire will fight for every single yard. He is sneaky agile, and I just love his game. I do think if this works out, he can be one of the better running backs in football. And I do think it's a lot to do with scheme. I'm like the last guy that would take a running back in the first round, but the Chiefs have that luxury because their team is already so complete that you're like, you know what, all we need is a running back. I mean, the Chiefs needed a few corners, maybe a few linebackers and such, but all they needed on offense to complete that team was a running back that can do it all. And not to say Damien Williams couldn't do it all, but they could have used an upgrade. And I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a clear upgrade over Damien Williams. Now, I saw this report like 2 days ago saying that Damien Williams is the lead back right now. And I know we're still months and months away from the season, but I do think by the time games start, it'll at least be a 50-50 split. So I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be a phenomenal pick here and fit very well for the Chiefs offense. He will help Patrick Mahomes if he needs to dump the ball off. I think he does everything right, and if they open up holes for him, he can make guys miss in the secondary. I mean, this can be a guy that can probably rush over 5 yards a carry as long as the offensive line and Patrick Mahomes stay healthy. So I am one of those believers, I mean, based off the last video I posted on this channel, that a lot of running back success has to do with the system they're in, you know, the offensive line they play with, the quarterback they play with, the outside weapons. The Chiefs have all of that. I mean, the Chiefs' offensive line is not perfect, but it's pretty good. And then you have probably the best quarterback in football and some of the best outside weapons in Tyreek Hill, a couple other speedy guys, Mecole Hardman, DeMarcus Robinson. I think, no, he might have went somewhere else, but who else did the Chiefs have received? Sammy Watkins, you have Travis Kelce at tight end. You have so many weapons here, and it just Clyde Edwards-Helaire is just going to fit in here, be that low-key guy that we forget about, but he might put up some phenomenal numbers. So for you fantasy football people out there, definitely look into Clyde Edwards-Helaire next year, especially if they're saying he'll be Damien Williams' backup heading into the season, because I don't believe that personally. So I went back and looked it up, and DeMarcus Robinson is still on the Chiefs roster. I know he was a free agent, but apparently he re-signed for 1 year, so I just wanted to clarify that. So my next guy, A.J. Epinesa, round 2, pick 54, defensive end for the Buffalo Bills. Now, when A.J. Epinesa was getting this mid-first round hype, I was not all about that. I think Epinesa is a guy that I thought was always going to be a solid NFL player, but I did not see him having a very high ceiling, which concerned me. I would have rather have taken a shot on, you know, a Kayvon Chason type guy, maybe as crazy as that sounds, but still, I would probably taken a chance on a different player in the middle rounds. I mean, maybe a C.J. Henderson type. I know he went 9th overall when it was all said and done. You know what I mean? I wanted a player with higher upside and taking A.J. Epinesa in the mid-first. But the fact that he fell to pick number 54, I feel is incredible value. So I love this pick for the Bills. The Bills' defense right now, especially their front seven, very, very good. And this was the same argument I made for Javon Kinlaw earlier. When you're playing on a defensive line with all these great weapons, or not weapons, but great players, it makes your job so much easier. They're not going to be able to double team A.J. Epinesa because then voila, Ed Oliver's in the backfield every play. You know what I mean? So this was a great pick by the Bills. I think this was their first pick due to the Stephon Diggs trade. So look, they had one of the best defensive units in football last year, and they just made that unit even better. So this is pretty scary. I do think, you know, when it's all said and done, I think Epinesa is going to be a very solid player, and we'll look back on his career and say, hey, that guy, he might not be a Hall of Famer, but he was a really good NFL player. So I do think he'll be a guy who probably might get maybe 8 to 10 sacks a year in that range, and, you know, maybe 10 to 15 tackles for losses per season, but he's going to be a very productive player for this team when it's all said and done. So I love this pick because, you know, he showed great strength on tape. There was times where he was just bullying people, made some left tackles look stupid, honestly, and, you know, he just seems very polished. He's a very NFL-ready prospect. I don't think there's going to be much of a learning curve with a prospect like this, so he should fit very easily into what the Bills want to do here. And based off them already having this great defense, I know, you know, they might have some offensive flaws. I think interior offensive line might be a bit of an issue for the Bills, but in terms of their defense, to add another defensive end and a pass rusher is a great move. I mean, the Bills don't have a 15 sack guy on their team, and I'm not saying Epinesa will be that, but the Bills as a team can accumulate so many sacks based off their secondary being good, their linebackers blitzing, and then you have guys in the interior defensive line that can get to the quarterback. So I think this is a great move for the Bills based off value. If someone's like Epinesa in the first round, I probably would not have included it, but when you take him in the middle to end of the second round, I say why not? That is a great pick in my mind, so I love Epinesa landing with the Bills at 54. Next, we have Willie Gay Jr., the 63rd overall pick in this draft, who went to the Kansas City Chiefs. I love what the Chiefs did in this draft, honestly. They had a couple more picks. I want to look up what they did real quick. So, I think they took Lucas Niang, who I was a fan of. I like his upside. Then L'Jarius Sneed, who went to Louisiana Tech. I like that pick as well. I can't say I know much about this Michigan defensive end or this Tulane cornerback, but for the most part, I was a big fan of what the Chiefs did in this draft, honestly. So, I mean, that probably won't say much because what do I know, but still, I like what they did. So I like this pick because of the talent and the value. So I think without the off-field issues and everything that went on with him, of course, I think if you don't know the story, I believe Willie Gay cheated on an exam. He got caught doing that. He was suspended for that. Then got into an altercation with his quarterback at Mississippi. So, these things happen. I mean, maybe the quarterback was a hothead and got on his nerves. And then, we've all been there. I'm sure most of us have done some sort of cheating on a test in our life before, and then sometimes you get caught. And, I feel bad for the guy, obviously. He has missed a lot of football due to this stuff, but when you look at Willie Gay on the football field, the guy is a tremendous player. He has that sideline-to-sideline athleticism, very big hitter when he wants to be, has a lot of coverage upside as well. I think this guy is great for a modern-day linebacker, and you know what? Adding him to a defense like the Chiefs that, there are some good parts of the Chiefs' defense. Their defensive line specifically, they have good safeties. They needed a good linebacker. So I think this is a guy they get here who definitely, as long as he stays out of trouble, will be a good pick in my mind. So it's a risky proposition because I have no idea if he'll stay on the field. But if he does, I think this player is just such a supreme talent that you might as well take the chance at 63. So I thought he'd go earlier than this. I honestly thought he might have been the first pick of the second round going to the Bengals. I thought that would have been a nice fit. But to get him at 63, I love this pick very much. I mean, as I said, the Chiefs needed some linebackers. They get a very good one here. And as long as this guy can stay out of trouble, I think we'll look back on this and say this is a very good pick for a team that's obviously ready to compete for another Super Bowl for the coming years. Next, we have Josh Jones, who went 72 overall in round 3, so he's now the starting right tackle, presumably, for the Arizona Cardinals. So Josh Jones was a guy that I was surprised even fell to the second round. Then he just falls all the way to the third round, and I'm just like, well, whoever gets this guy is getting a phenomenal value, and that's what I love. I put incredible value here. So this guy, I mean, look, he's not going to blow you away based off what you see on tape. He's not going to do what Mekhi Becton did, throwing people into the ground. He's not going to do what Andrew Thomas did on tape. But when you watch him every rep, like rep for rep, his technique is very solid. I do think he's one of the best pass blockers in this class. He has good size. He just doesn't have like great highlights and stuff like that, but that's fine to me. You want your offensive linemen to be boring. As long as they're doing their job and you don't hear about them, they're probably doing well. So Josh Jones, in my mind, as I said, very good technique. Probably one of the best pass protectors in this class. I would say top 5 based off the guys I watched. And Jones has enough mobility to, get down the field and get some blocks in the run game as well. And I think Kyler Murray, as I wrote down here, is a future superstar. So to block this guy and just make sure he takes as minimal hits as possible, I think is very important. You have your outside weapons now. You have your running back in Kenyon Drake. They also have a left tackle now in DJ Humphries that they signed to an extension. So they're working on this offensive line. It's getting better. I know they still have Justin Pugh, a former Giant. So they do have some pieces on this offensive line, and hopefully it gets a lot better. So Josh Jones did play left tackle at Houston, and hopefully he can make that transition to right tackle. So they do have Marcus Gilbert, but that guy, unfortunately, has been hurt basically every year the past few seasons, so I don't really expect him to be the starter. If he beats out Josh Jones, I'm not going to be shocked by it, but I'd also be shocked if he made it through a full season, so I do think Josh Jones will get to play at some point. I honestly don't know why he fell this far in the draft. Maybe I'm missing something, but I feel like I'm not the only person to like Josh Jones here, so I do think this might have been an incredible value. It's a really good need, and I do think the Cardinals are a team that's on the rise. I do think they have a very good good chance to compete next year. They might be your 9 or 10 win team. I'm not sure they're going to compete for a Super Bowl next year. They might be a year away from that, but this is going to be a competitive team. And if their offensive line can get it together, that can make them a Super Bowl team next year. So I really am excited for this team. I love Kyler Murray and a lot of pieces they have on this team. They got DeAndre Hopkins for pennies, basically. So if Josh Jones can be good and DJ Humphries on the other side can be good, they need their tackle position to work well. I think this team is in pretty good shape for the future. Up next is Terrell Burgess, the third-round pick, 104 overall, who went to the Los Angeles Rams. He's the cornerback/safety. He did play safety in college mostly, but he can play all over. We'll go over that later. So I love this pick based off of fit and need. So I do think on this Rams secondary, they do have a really good secondary. 2 young safeties that have promise. They have, of course, Jalen Ramsey. So, I mean, yeah, they have a good secondary, but Terrell Burgess, the thing I love about him is the versatility. And I do think he might be a very good slot corner in the NFL one day. So Nikel Roby-Coleman went to Philly. That's no problem. Eric Weddle retires, of course. This pick will help that as well. So he's played over 130 snaps at free safety, in the box, and the nickel at Utah. So that's amazing. You want to have a guy who's versatile. There's many versatile players in this draft. Isaiah Simmons, Xavier McKinney, and so forth. There's a lot of Kayvon Wallace with the Eagles. A lot of guys that can play multiple positions in the secondary in this draft class. And that does not surprise me based off the way that football is moving now. So, this reminds me of the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson pick from last year. He went to Florida. He was a guy I watched a lot of, and I loved him. He went to the Saints. The Saints didn't necessarily have a need at cornerback or safety, but he did work his way into the lineup last year and made some pretty big plays. He did have some penalties here and there, but for the most part, CJ Gardner-Johnson was a pretty good player for them, and I do think Terrell Burgess reminds me of that pick, so I think he'll fit in very nicely here if they use him the right way. I know Wade Phillips is gone now as defensive coordinator, but if they use him the right way, I think this will be a great pick. Terrell Burgess is one of the more underrated players in this class, in my opinion. When you watch him on tape, he just doesn't do a lot wrong. I mean, he's very quick, has quick hips, all that stuff that you would want as a slot cornerback in the NFL. A really good tackler as well. There's a lot of guys that have tackling issues in this class, or from what I saw at least, and this guy is probably not one of them. I do think he was a good tackler, has good technique as well. So he's not a freak athlete, but he has really good football IQ. He understands route concepts, all that stuff. And if the Rams use him the right way, we might look back on this and say this was a great value pick because, as I said, reminds me of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson from last year. So I could be wrong, and I just do see a lot of connections here. I love the versatility with this player, and I just think as a football player in general, I like Terrell Burgess a lot. So I do think the Rams made a nice pick here. Next, we have Darnay Holmes, who went pick number 110, round 4, to my favorite team, the New York Giants, to play cornerback. I love this pick because of need and talent. So the Giants definitely need a slot corner. They tried that last year with an undrafted free agent in Grant Haley. They tried it with a 6th-round pick, I believe, in Corey Ballantyne. That did not work. So the Giants definitely need a slot corner, and I do think Darnay Holmes could be their guy. So Holmes is only 5'10", I believe, so he probably won't play much outside corner. He did have some, difficulty on some deep jump balls and stuff like that, but that's to be expected when you're playing against guys that are 6'5", 6'4", whatever they are. So that's expected, and he probably won't play much on the outside in the NFL anyway. But I do think that the slot nickel corner position in the NFL today is very important. I think most good teams have reliable slot corners. I do think the Giants need one, so I do think this was a great pick. And Deion Sanders at the Combine had this really nice quote about him, saying he was the best player I've seen thus far. The best player I've seen thus far has been Darnay Holmes. He looked flawless, unbelievable. So when you get that kind of praise from Deion Sanders, that is absolutely amazing. So this guy, he's very quick. He ran a 4.48 40. I think he has really good feet, quick feet, good hips as well, and just really good movement skills. So I do think this would be a very nice pick. Is it definitely going to work out? Maybe not. The guy's a 4th-round pick for a reason. He's a bit undersized, but I do think if you stick him at slot corner, I think it'll work out very well. So I'm excited about this pick as a Giants fan. Holmes was a guy I watched a lot of, and I was a big fan of. So to see my team take him in the 4th round, it was very exciting, to be honest. I hope this pick works out. He has all the tools to do so. I just hope they use him the right way. So lastly, we have Tyler Johnson. I'm only doing 10 players. I feel like I could have done more, but that would have taken a very long time. I would have been here for a while. There were some other picks I liked. Christian Fulton going where he went to the Titans I thought was tremendous value. I like Julian Okwara a lot. I'm not sure about the team fit with the Lions, but that's another player I was a big fan of. Terrell Lewis, who went to the Rams, big fan of him. So could have put those guys in here, but I wasn't as big of a fan of the fit with their certain teams. But this fit I like. Tyler Johnson going to the Buccaneers, round 5, pick 161. So based off need, value, and talent, that's why I like it. The Bucs clearly have their outside guys, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. They have their tight ends and Rob Gronkowski, O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate, assuming none of them get traded or anything like that. So they needed a slot receiver. I can't even name who their slot receiver was last year. I know Adam Humphries used to be, but he went to the Titans a couple years ago. So when we look at Tyler Johnson, his numbers were incredible. He had over 1,150 receiving yards in back-to-back seasons, had over 12 touchdowns or more the past 2 seasons as well. So I honestly don't know why he fell all the way to the 5th round. It could be because he's not this tremendous athlete. He didn't have a great combine and all that. But, I mean, he's limited to the slot mostly, but, when you look at him as just a player in the production, NFL teams need slot receivers. It's just the truth. And Tyler Johnson, this is a team right here, the Buccaneers, that absolutely needed a guy like Tyler Johnson. Didn't have to be him specifically, but to get him in the 5th round, I absolutely love that pick. So Tom Brady over the years has made slot receivers very relevant, whether it was Wes Welker to start off his career or whether it was Julian Edelman, the past, 8, 9, 10 years, whatever it's been. So, he's always had an eye for the slot receivers, and I think Tyler Johnson, it will take time to earn Tom Brady's trust, but Tyler Johnson is a reliable receiver. He gets open, he runs good routes, he sure-handed, all that good stuff. And Bruce Arians, the head coach, was ecstatic to get him, so I do think he has a very good chance to see the field as a rookie. If Tom Brady doesn't like you, you might not see the field as a rookie, but I do think he has a good chance based off his talent. And as I said, I really don't know who the other slot receivers could be for this team anyway. I could be missing something, but I really don't know who else it would be. So as I said, I do think he might have fell because of his lack of athleticism. It wasn't crazy compared to some other receivers. He's not a flashy 6'6" guy or a guy who ran like a 4.3 40 and stuff like that. So I do think he might have fell based off that stuff, but just based on being a pure receiver, I thought he was really good. And he knows how to get open. He knows how to catch passes. I think he'll be a really good fit here as long as the Bucs use him in the slot. So I think he'll be a reliable target. I like this pick a lot. The Bucs offense will be fun to watch, and I just hope their offensive line can stay healthy and block enough for Tom Brady, because I do think if they do that, this offense will be very fun. So that's what I'm hoping for at least. So Tyler Johnson will be my last guy. I went over some other picks I liked before. So this is my favorite 10 picks based off the need, value, talent, all that stuff. So give me some of your favorites in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you next time.